George, I just want to read you a bit of what the New York Times wrote last week with regard to our emissions. And they said if we had started in 2005 to limit emissions, they would have been more gradual. 2015 would have been more drastic had action been taken. But it wrote, starting today would require cuts so drastic as to appear essentially impossible. What do you think? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, thank you, and thank you, Robert. I mean, you do make a persuasive case. It's getting harder and harder to argue against it. And as you know, some of us have been saying similar things now for a very long time. I mean, this is my 40th year as an environmental journalist and campaigner. And I've essentially been saying the same thing all along. And the longer we leave this, the harder it's going to get, and the lower our chances of success. It's not to say they've yet reached zero, because while there's some things we can't stop, and some shifts which are inevitable now, I think we can perhaps limit the scale of the damage if we do take action now. But the returns are diminishing, and the risks are increasing. It's a very bad combination indeed, and in the world's most powerful nation, they've just elected a climate science denier who is going to thwart and frustrate climate action, not just in the United States, but around the world. So it's not difficult to feel a sense of despair. All my working life, I've been kind of professionally optimistic, and I've tried to find the hope, and it's quite difficult to find it right now.
So what do you do then when you're talking about incoming U.S. President Donald Trump? He's elected by voters, and so there is not the public has not coalesced behind the climate crisis issue, or there are differing views, or there are other issues they see as more pressing. And we know again that inflation, cost of living was weighed heavily on the electorate in the last U.S. election. So how do you deal with the public view of this? How do you talk to the public around what needs to be done now?
I mean, we have to remember that this hasn't happened by accident. There has been a huge effort at denial, distraction, delay, obfuscation
But how do you
around
counter it
climate
now?
science. Yeah, well, there isn't a magic formula. Look, if there were, we would have discovered it by now because believe me, we have tried everything. We're in a primarily hostile media environment with a few obvious exceptions, and thank you for the exceptions. And we're now in a very hostile social media environment as well, particularly with Elon Musk's ownership of X and now Mark Zuckerberg effectively cancelling out attempts to control misinformation and disinformation. And of course, the big money is being invested in misinformation and disinformation over climate science because otherwise the writing would be on the wall for the fossil fuel companies. They don't want that to happen, so they invest in persuasion. So it's hard. Look, all we can do is to keep on trying. And people like me have been trying for a very long time. We just need an lot more people involved. But it's really, really difficult because we are up against forces much bigger than ourselves. I'm not giving up. I'm not despairing. I'm going to keep trying to encourage other people to weigh in on this. But I am feeling pretty small and pretty powerless at the moment.
What keeps you going, George? Why are you not giving up?
Well, yeah, I mean, partly because I feel I owe it to my own children and to all the other younger people on Earth now. We just cannot let them down. We can't betray them. It's our generations which have caused this problem. We spend our lives telling our children, if you make a mess, you've got to tidy it up. It's your responsibility. And then we make a mess, an existential mess. And what do? We leave it to our children to tidy it up? It's just not right. It's not fair to do that. And so that there's a sort of very powerful moral case just to keep going by any means possible, however hard it might be.